I was thinking, my God, it's just going to be me looking at Ajitesh and Gauranga Prema.
Right.
Gauranga Prema's got to stay conscious. So I was getting scared. I was like, oh. But then Krishna sent Nadi Bihari to be here. He's going to leave, isn't he?
I got a second cruise over.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nastapureshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Tamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay.
Well, I've never seen one like that.
It's a big word, isn't it? Artendriyarta, I'm sorry. Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Pandavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanam Yena Vishati Mukyatam Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Panavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanan Yena Vishyati Mukyatam Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Panavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanan Yena Vishyati Mukyatam Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Panavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanan Yena Vishyati Mukyatam. Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Panavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanan Yena Vishyati Mukyatam. Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Panavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanam Yena Vishyati Mukyatam. Artendriyarta Vidyanam Sarvarta Panavonunam Brahmshito Jnana Vijnanan Yena Vishyati Mukyatam. Atendriyarta Vijnanam Sarvatapanavodvinam Namsito Jnana Vijnanam Yena Vishyati Mukyatam. Thank you, Sadhu. Okay, word Artha, riches. Indriyartha, for the satisfaction of the senses. Abhidyanam, constantly thinking of. Sarva Artha, 4 kinds of achievements. Apanavara, destructive. Now, of human society. Brahmshita, being devoid of. Jnana, knowledge. Vijnana, devotional service. Yena, mildness. Avishati, enters. Mukhayatam, immovable life. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. For human society, constantly thinking of how to earn money and apply it for sense gratification brings about the destruction of everyone's interests. When one becomes devoid of knowledge and devotional service, he enters into species of life like those of trees and stones. Heavy. These are some heavy verses we've been going through here. Please repeat. For human society, constantly thinking of how to earn money and apply it for sense gratification brings about the destruction of everyone's interests. When one becomes devoid of knowledge and devotional service, he enters into the species of life like those of trees and stones. Purport. Jnana, or knowledge, means to understand one's constitutional position, and vijnana refers to practical application of that knowledge in life. In the human form of life, one should come to the position of jnana and vijnana. But if despite this great opportunity, one does not develop knowledge and practical application of knowledge through the help of the spiritual master and the Shastras. In other words, if one misuses this opportunity, then in the next life he is sure to be born in a species of non-moving living entities. Non-moving living entities include hills, mountains, trees, plants, etc. Imagine being born as a hill, folks. This stage of life is called punyatam or mukyatam, namely making all activities zero. Philosophers who support stopping all activities are called shunyavadi. By nature's own way, our activities are to be gradually diverted to devotional service. But there are philosophers who, instead of purifying their senses, try to make everything zero or void of all activities. This lack of activity is represented by the trees and the hills. This is a kind of punishment inflicted by the laws of nature. If we do not properly execute our mission of life and self-realization, nature's punishment will render us inactive by putting us in the form of trees and hills. Therefore, activities directed towards sense gratification are condemned herein. One who is constantly thinking of activities to earn money and gratify the senses is following a path which is suicidal. Factually, all human society is following this path. Some way or other, people are determined to earn money or get money by begging, borrowing, or stealing, and applying that for sense gratification. Such a civilization is the greatest obstacle in the path of self-realization. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnanatamandasya Gnananjana Sharakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayam Shri Guru Shri Taparakamaram Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Savadatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Sta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavani Shri Vishabhana Shruti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhista Kripa Sindhibhye Vacha Padidhanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pashtita Deshtarane Namaste Jivanandaya Dasa Vanacharine Prabhupada Vallabhaya Singhasadavanorine Agyanadvanta Gamanam Pashtita Patitatmanam Gyana Gurute Chitarine Chakshashe Nama Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Sheshaklesha Nashaya Paramanadadaine Vanchakalpatarabhishta Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. She's going to do mantras all the way till Saridhara Vidyajal. So, these are verses spoken by Sanat Kumara to Maharaj Prithu. So Sanat Kumara is one of the chief Kumaras of the four Kumaras, one of the great authorities in devotional service. There are 12 authorities in devotional service, the Mahajans. And the Kumaras are considered one of them as one great Mahajan. And there are 4 disciplic successions of Vaishnavas. One of them was started by Lord Brahma. Krishna spoke to Lord Brahma from within the heart. Lord Brahma spoke to Narada. Narada spoke to Vyas. Vyas spoke to Madhva. And from that line, Ishvara Puri comes, who spoke to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya spoke to Rupa and Sanatan, all the way down to Narottam, Vishwanath Baladev, and to our acharyas that we have on the altar. And to Srila Prabhupada, who we are hearing from. So we're in the Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Sampradaya. There's also the Rudra Sampradaya, which is started by Lord Rudra or Lord Shiva. There's the Sri Sampradaya, which is coming in the line of Lakshmi Devi, who's the original founder acharya of that Sampradaya, Lakshmi Devi. And there's the Kumara Sampradaya. The Kumara Sampradaya is coming down from the 4 Kumaras, who are the firstborn sons of Lord Brahma. So, they are speaking here to Maharaj Prithu about the glories of devotional service, the glories of Krishna. And so much of that involves philosophy. There's so much to be known in devotional service. We have beautiful pastimes of Krishna. We have beautiful activities and leelas of the Lord. And we also have philosophy intertwined, because that philosophy helps us to understand properly these leelas and what is our purpose. So Srimad Bhagavatam means the beautiful activities of the Bhagavat, of Krishna, of God. But God is never separated from his devotees. So Srimad Bhagavatam also means the beautiful activities of God and his devotees. So we can understand that actually, if we have the eyes to see, we are living the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is not just a scripture to be read. Srila Prabhupada is speaking of Jnanam and Vijnanam. So if we want Vijnana, if we want actual realized knowledge, we have to not just read the Bhagavatam, but we actually have to enter the Bhagavatam. We have to become part of the Bhagavatam. That means we are living according to the previous acharyas and performing pure devotional service. So the Bhagavatam goes on to the 12th canto, speaking of the Kali Yuga. And in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains that the Lord will appear in the age of Kali in a form that's not blackish, and perform congregational chanting of the holy name. And intelligent persons in this age worship that form. who we know as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is elaborately described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kaviraj and the Chaitanya Bhagavat of Vrindavan Das Thakur. And so as we hear the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is also Bhagavatam in essence. And we should also realize that we are associating with Srila Prabhupada, who is a great devotee of the Lord, even sometimes considered a Shakti Vaishyavatar. So this is not a mundane thing. Srila Prabhupada's preaching of the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world is not a mundane material activity. It's an absolute spiritual activity. Also, the Bhagavatam. And we are participating in that pastime of Srila Prabhupada's spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. And if we actually understand what this temple is and what's going on here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here, Lord Nityananda is here, Prasadam is here, the devotees are here, the chanting of the Mahamantra is here, the preaching of the glories of the holy name is here, the reading of the Bhagavatam is here. Everything that we see in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes is here. We just don't have the eyes to see it all the time. But the Lord is here in the form of his deity. So we have to simply awaken the vision to see that we are actually participating in the Lord's Leela. Why is that? Krishna says, Mahamanas tamam partha daivim prakriti mashrita bhajant yananya manaso. Yes, so Mahamanas tamam partha daivim prakriti mashrita. That the Mahatmas, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. Bhajant yananya manaso, because they understand me to be the absolute truth. Gyata buddhidamavyayam, with their intelligence. They understand my position as the absolute truth. Therefore, satatam kirtayantamam, they're always chanting my glories. Namashantashtimam bhakta, they're bowing down before me with great devotion. Yatantascha jujravataha, they're endeavoring with great determination to serve me. Nitya yukta upashate, and therefore they're always united with me in love. So we're also endeavoring to always chant the Lord's glories. We are endeavoring to serve the Lord, hopefully with great determination, to do some service. And we're bowing down before the Lord with great devotion. Therefore, to the degree we can perfect this process that Krishna is giving, which is our process, we're entering into the divine nature. What does that mean? We're no longer under the control of Maya. We're under the control of Radharani. And therefore, we are in the divine potency. So this is a transcendental Leela. This temple is not of the material world. It is Vaikuntha, for those who have the eyes to see. So Sanat Kumar is speaking about human society and how this constantly thinking of how to earn money and apply it for sense gratification brings about the destruction of everyone's interests. So that pretty much sums up the whole world. Why is it that we're constantly meditating on how to make money? And because of this meditation on how to make money, we're destroying the interests of everybody. This is due to a misconception of who we are. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam. Dharma swanushtita pumsam vishvakshena katashriyaha not parayed yatiratim shrama eva kevalam. That all the activities in human society, dharma swanushtita pumsam, this dharmas, all the dharmas that we find in human society, vishvakshena katashriyaha, that if you don't develop this rati, this attraction toward the message of Vishvakshena Kata. Vishvakshena is the Lord, and Kata writes the message or the Kata. If we're not developing attraction to that message of the personality of Godhead, Shrama Eva Kevalam, then all of our activities are useless in this life and the next. They're completely meaningless because the human form of life is not meant for this type of existence. It's meant for developing our God consciousness. Last night at the Krishna Cove, Guru Maharaj was speaking, and he can pull things off really nicely sometimes, like kind of funny in a really funny way, but super heavy. So we're speaking about how you are creating your next body. The dream. It was a beautiful topic. He said, following our dreams. It's this following our dream. What is a dream? A dream isn't real. A dream is a factual illusion. And so we hear all about the people in the world saying, let's follow our dreams. Follow your dreams. And so Guru Maharaj was explaining that if you're thinking, I want this, I want that, then by your meditation on your desires, you are forming your next body. You're following your dreams. And therefore you're going to get a body of your dreams in your next life. And then he proceeded to ask the audience if they would like to hear an example, but a gross example. And he began to speak about sex life, that if we are only attracted to sex life, if this is our meditation, if this is our main focus in life, then this body is not really adequate, because there's so much complication in human sex life, whereas the dog or the pigeon, they don't have this complication. So we're following our dream and taking the body of a pigeon or a dog. And he managed to say it really funny. Everybody was laughing at the expense of Chris and Curtis a little bit. They got a little brunt of the joke there. So, yeah, but we are creating this next body by our meditation. So, constantly thinking of how to earn money brings about the destructions of everyone's interest, because this selfishness is the cause of our bondage in the material world. And it's just a known fact, the Buddhists also speak about this, that if we're thinking of ourselves, meditating on our own pleasure, to that degree we're unhappy. So they don't know the goal of life. People don't know the goal of life. And because they think the goal of life is sense gratification, the first thing in order to enjoy the senses one has to have is some profit. To the degree we have profit, to the degree we have money, we can enjoy. And to the degree we don't have money, it's harder to enjoy. Even the junkies out on the street, they're somehow finding money. Hare Krishna Prabhu. They're somehow finding money to enjoy, right? Because they have to buy their drugs. So they're also trying to enjoy on a lower level. But ultimately, this profit or this economic development is facilitating sense gratification. And if we meditate on that, if that becomes the goal of our life, then it puts a lot of other people into difficulty. It causes us a lot of difficulty, and it puts others into difficulty. There's that famous verse in the Ishopanishad, Ishavasya midam sarvam yat kincha jagatam jagat tena tyaktena bunditaha magrida kasya svidanam. That everything in this material world is owned and controlled by Krishna. Krishna owns and controls everything. And each living entity is allowed a certain quota. Therefore, we shouldn't encroach upon another person's property or another person's quota, because we know who it belongs to. It belongs to Krishna. So every living entity is being provided for. The birds aren't having economic problems. The ants don't have any economic problems. Only people in the world who have economic problems are humans. The only souls that have these problems are human beings. Because human beings create a false need. Because our minds are very powerful. Our minds are capable of understanding the absolute truth. But the misuse of that powerful mind, that imagination, means that we can desire so much higher level of sense gratification than animals. It's unbelievable. Animals don't watch porn. It's just unbelievable. Human beings are the most degraded in one sense. They can be the most elevated, but they can be the most degraded. There's a whole industry. It's like millions.
Who watch porn? Our animals. So special.
Right. So I mean, this industry is so massive. It's billions of dollar industry, because humans have they can concoct these ideas of sense gratification just so far out, you can't even imagine all the different, facilities for sense gratification. Animals aren't spending millions of dollars on makeup. And even the predators, they kill one animal at a time. But the humans, we can create these slaughterhouses to slaughter millions of animals. There's something like over 1 million animals slaughtered a day. It's really, really horrendous. So why is this? This is because, like Sanat Kumar is saying here, everybody's thinking of sense gratification and thinking of how to get money to perform that sense gratification. And the human being has this mind which can do that on a very extreme level. And so Krishna calls that ugra karma, which is horrible works meant to destroy the world. They're engaging in these horrible works meant to destroy the world. And Srila Prabhupada says in that verse, he says this indicates the atom bomb. And why do we have to have the atomic bomb? Why does this, these wars happen? And why is the war in Israel happening? Israel and Palestine, they're fighting over God's land, Krishna's land. And one group of people thinks that they're the chosen people. And it's their land, and the other group of people lived there before, so they think it's our land, and they're fighting over it, but it's actually Krishna's land. And they're not the chosen people, because the chosen people are not a race. It's not a matter of blood, because we're not these bodies. Although I've spoken to some of the rabbis at the campus, and they are very much convinced that their blood is better than anybody else's blood, I can tell you. I spoke to him. I said, well, what's your beliefs? Because I was curious, because I was distributing books, and I just saw a rabbi, and I grew up in Kearney. There's no Jewish people there, zero. And I was, speaking to him, and he was just telling me, he's like, the Jews are the chosen people, and everybody else, they're good, they can go to heaven, but the Jews are very special. And actually, because we make people very uncomfortable, that's why we get prosecuted. He said, we make people uncomfortable because we have more righteousness than any other group of people. And my mouth just dropped. And he said, you can feel it. And I was just flabbergasted by this guy's arrogance. So, there's a probably conception of life. My mouth was dropping because I was so flabbergasted by how he can say that this group of people is more righteous than any other group of people on the planet. And then he said, Jews make people uncomfortable because of that. And he said, you're feeling uncomfortable right now because you can feel my righteousness. So the world is taking me back. But this bodily conception of life is the cause of this suffering, because we're thinking I'm this body and we need sense gratification. And so that just creates bad karma for the whole world. It's against everybody's self-interest. And therefore they become devoid of knowledge and devotional service. So knowledge means understanding first off, I'm not this body. As explained, jnana means I'm not this body, and vijnana means devotional service. So I often ask this to people, right? First thing you do is you explain to someone the very first day in Krishna consciousness, first time they come to the temple, what's our line? You're not this body, you're the soul within the body. Okay, what's the soul? If I'm the soul within the body, what are the activities of the soul? I've been acting like a body for millions of lifetimes, so what is it a soul is supposed to do? And therefore I always answer, the soul is meant to love. The soul is meant to love God first and foremost, and love all other living entities. Jivara Swarupya Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das. Right? The soul is the eternal servant of Krishna. That's the position of the soul. Maivamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are all parts and parcels of Krishna, and our dharma is to serve Krishna. So, yeah. when we forget that, the first thing we lose is knowledge. Because we're absorbed in our senses, we become obsessed with sense gratification, we become obsessed with the body, we lose our knowledge. And when you hear that word jnana, generally what that means, when you read about it in Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, it means knowledge of the matter and spirit. That's generally what Krishna is speaking of. Like jnana yoga means differentiating matter and spirit. Or the jnani is one who understands himself as spirit. So, or bahunam dhammanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate, one who actually understands that he's not this body, one who actually is in knowledge, he surrenders to Krishna. So if you have that jnana, we lose that jnana by engaging in the senses and the sense gratification. There's that famous verse in the second canto, Bhogashvara prashaktanam te preta chetasam vivasyatmika buddhi samudayan avidiyate, that to those who are too attached to material opulence and sense gratification and are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination to perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. In case you're wondering why some people don't come to Krishna consciousness, or they understand, maybe they're hearing the philosophy, but they can't start being serious about devotional service, that's why. Because of this attachment to opulence and sense gratification. So hard to let go of, and therefore I can't become determined to engage all my energies in Krishna's service. I'm being drained by these material desires, which actually they weaken us. They weaken our resolve. It's like we see that when someone is motivated just by sense gratification, motivation is not so great. They're not going to do very much. They'll get it, but it's not that they're very motivated, actually. They're just motivated enough to get satisfied. But when one is motivated by devotional service, they'll cross the ocean, Srila Prabhupada, and do so much. So that's real motivation. Determination, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita the different types of determination. He says that determination in the mode of goodness is sustained by yoga practice. Right? And it's unwavering. So that's because someone is enlightened with knowledge, they can have real determination. Because they understand the real goal of life. Whereas everything's an equation when it comes to sense gratification. If the work it takes to get the sense gratification outweighs the sense gratification, then the whole action becomes void. I don't want to perform it anymore. It's not worth it. But we know that Krishna is the greatest and Krishna is the best. And that the pleasure of serving Krishna supersedes all other pleasures. Therefore, the devotee will do anything to serve Krishna. So one loses their sense of knowledge by engaging in the senses, and then they have no realized knowledge. They have no devotional service, because devotional service begins when one realizes we're not this body. Krishna says, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochatina kangshanti samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. That when one is a Brahmabhuta, when one actually realizes they're Brahman, then at that stage, mad bhaktim labate param, then they can engage in the pure love of God. So one is devoid of this devotional service when engaged in the bodily concept of life. So what's the solution? The solution is devotional service. And so Dhira Prabhu was reading some beautiful verses from the first canto, second chapter yesterday. And we can also go into that first canto, second chapter, because it basically describes, there's a series of verses that really culminate in how do you have that vijnana, how do you have that devotional service, how do you develop knowledge. And so the first verse I think of is Krishna, Sutta Goswami says, Savai pum sambha dharmo yato bhaktir hoksajay, haitu kyapatiyata yayatma supersediti. That the supreme dharma for humanity at large is that by which they can attain pure loving service to the personality of Godhead. Savai pumsam paradharma, the paradharma. What's the real occupation of the human being? The paradharma. Yato bhakti hoksajay is perform bhakti yoga to the Supreme Lord. That's our real dharma. Ahaitukya pratiyata has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted. So sometimes it's easy to perform unmotivated devotional service, but it's not always easy to perform uninterrupted devotional service, because you're always interrupted by desires for sense gratification. It's nice and performing devotional service. I had my nice sadhana. I did the whole morning program. I did so well today. I read, but then I have to, I'm just going to turn off the devotional service for a while and look at Facebook and get into Maya for a few minutes. And then it just zaps all your bliss. Totally zaps your bliss. And so then you got to get back in. So then uninterrupted means you continuously perform devotional service. There's no interruption. You just keep going. You're only motivated by performing service. Yayatma supersedity, and that will satisfy the self as well as the human society. So all human society is meant to perform bhakti yoga. That's the paradharma. That's our real dharma. And the next verse is Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayata Haitukam. That by performing bhakti yoga to Vasudev, to Bhagavan Vasudev, Janayat Yashu Vairagyam, one develops immediate vairagya, which means they become detached. So we're so attached to this bodily conception of life, we're so attached to the bodily relationships, the misconceptions. But simply by engaging in devotional service, one develops causeless vairagya and knowledge. Jnanam Chayata Haitukam. Causeless, immediate. It's just granted to one who performs bhakti yoga. They develop knowledge and renunciation. So that's very simple. One simply has to engage in bhakti yoga, and immediately they become realized as not being this body. They can understand I'm not this body. Krishna confirms that. Mam chayo vyabhyacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatit yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Krishna explains that if one can engage in serious devotional service, bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatit yaitan, they immediately rise above the modes and they realize themselves as spirit, so they develop real knowledge. And then that vijnana, Srila Prabhupada explains in this verse, vijnana means devotional service. Vijnana means not just understanding I'm not this body, but actually acting on that level, applying that knowledge, which means acting in devotional service, acting as the soul. What is the soul's purpose? The soul's purpose is to love Krishna, to serve Krishna, and to always act for Krishna. So I'll just close it with this point that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that there are 4 types of pious men who surrender unto him. And one of them is this person like we're describing here who just wants wealth. And so he's not a pure devotee, he wants wealth. One of them is someone who's distressed, the artha. And then there's the artarthi, he wants wealth. And then the jigyasur, one who is seeking, just curious. And then the jnani, one who is seeking knowledge of the absolute. All 4 of them are considered not pure devotees. But Prabhupada explains that by performing devotional service, they become purified, and then they eventually come to the level of pure devotional service. So, and there's a series of verses there which we're reading in the morning right now, which culminate in that verse, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Maprapagyate Vasudevam Savamiti Salvahama Sadirlabhara. But actually, when one is really in knowledge, when one actually realizes that they're not this body, it kind of undoes the desire for sense gratification. Because if I'm not this body, I don't need to gratify the senses. I don't really need profit because I'm not this body. And if I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul. My curiosity is also satisfied. So one who's an actual jnani, one who actually realizes himself as Brahman, he immediately engages in devotional service. Jnanavam mam prapadyante. And Krishna says that also later on, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. He engages in bhakti yoga. Why is that? And what is that? How is that bhakti yoga different from the jnani? Well, the jnani is still desiring spiritual knowledge. He still wants to know things, whereas the bhakti yogi, he's totally convinced that Krishna is everything. He sees Krishna as everything, and his only desire is to serve Krishna. He doesn't even care about his own advancement anymore. He's just absorbed in his service. And so that's the state of pure devotional service. And so Maya is always tricking us into thinking that we are away from Krishna, that we don't have Krishna, that we're not good enough for Krishna. That's how Maya is always working, that I'm so filled with anarthas and dirty things, but actually the soul is pure. So one who actually realizes that they no longer are concerned with all the impure things they may have done in the past, they're no longer acting on, their anarthas aren't affecting them anymore. And the desires may be there, but they're not affecting them. They're simply acting in devotional service to Krishna, only on the platform of love. And therefore they become pure devotees, devoid of any desire for sense gratification. And therefore they have that vijnana that Srila Prabhupada is speaking about. And the whole world has to come to that realization eventually, or else, it's going to get real dark. And it's probably going to get real dark. But it is that desire for sense gratification. No one can live happily. Another, and that's why we have war. And so it's 8:50. We will have some questions. Sorry, Shri Prabhu.
Yeah, I guess there's no mic.
Yeah. But Gauranga Prema.
Hey. Chief Judge. Just wondering.
Yeah. So in the verse, Sanat Kumar, he's saying how, people, they're constantly thinking of how to earn money for sense gratification. Sounds like they're very busy.
Yeah.
But in the purport, Prabhupada talks about the consequence of that is to make them, to just dull like mountains and trees. How does, you're going from very active to very inactive.
I thought that also.
The only thing I can think of is Nalakuvar Mani Griva. They were also very busy being intoxicated and with the girls in the lake and all this. So then they were cursed by Narada.
Well, it's kind of like what I've read in different places is that, like Prabhupada explains that the consciousness of a tree is practically nil. And so, that sense gratification just makes us dull and more dull, and our consciousness is becoming lower. And so we take the body of a tree or a hill. Probably this is even a hill.
Yeah, hill.
And I was thinking, wow, imagine taking the body of a hill. That's a long life.
Sounds hellish.
So, yeah. I guess that it's because as the consciousness becomes duller and duller, then they're taking these types of non-moving bodies.
Chris has some insight.
If you had the consciousness of a tree, like very slow moving, you might appreciate more how busy the busy humans are, because they would seem to be moving really fast.
Well, the tree's in the mode of ignorance, right? So trees are all in the mode of ignorance. They're deeply immersed in ignorance, that those consciousness in the trees. So, that's the process, that even the mode of goodness degrades into the mode of ignorance. Prabhupada explains that, someone situated in the mode of goodness, they begin to think they're better than other people. And so they develop a little bit of passion, and then they fall into the mode of passion. And from that mode of passion, they begin to desire sense gratification. Because that's how it starts. I'm so good. I'm in the mode of goodness. I open hospitals. I'm so shanti and peaceful. And look at me. Why aren't you looking at me? I'm in the mode of goodness. Now I become angry. And then anger is, right? That's ignorance. And so it's a progressive, getting the modes always brings us down. So the trees are, I'll get you. The trees are, the bottom of that. After they've done the passionate thing, the sense gratification thing, they'll come down to tree bodies. Do you approve?
People from South Africa would say, if you become healed, it is hellish life.
If you become a what?
Healed.
Oh, hell, yeah.
It is hellish life. Very hellish.
Yeah. Chandrika?
It seems like most people don't really achieve the opulence that they have in their mind, that they think, hey, I want to be rich and millions, and they don't really achieve that, but in their mind they want it.
All right, any other points? Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jasmine.